Alright guys, let's go over the book Permaculture, Principles and Pathways Beyond Sustainability by David Holmgren, the supposed co-originator of the permaculture concept. We have the spiral there, familiar pattern we always see. Now, some of the predictions of resource decline and economic collapse made in the 1970s have proven to be mistaken, at least in their timing. However, the evidence that natural resources are already constraining human development after approximately 300 years of growth and 50 years of super-accelerated growth is strong and increasing. The evidence that the current oil crisis reflects the permanent end to cheap energy is compelling. Models from natural systems suggest a collapse back to low energy and resource use, mostly renewable, and a decline in world population is likely. So this is the Hunger Games, right in our textbooks, guys. Doing more with fewer resources and less energy. Permaculture, more fundamentally, was predicted or predicated on the likelihood of some degree of collapse and breakdown in technology, economics, and even society, which is not envisaged or designed by the green tech optimists, but is a current reality for many people around the world. Having pinned the relevance of permaculture to a future with less energy, there you go, what might be its relevance in some brave new world of abundant energy and resources, nuclear, genetic engineering, space colonies, or any of the other hoped for or feared possibility. None of that's going to be for us, okay? It's just, oh man. What else we got? The emergence of environmental awareness and innovation in the last quarter of the 20th century can be seen as clusters of intense activity followed by longer, slower phases of consolidation. These phases of new activity tend to coincide with recession in the mainstream economy. Of course they do. Of course they do. Permaculture was one of the environmental alternatives which emerged from the first great wave of modern environmental awareness, following the Club of Rome report in 1972 and the oil shocks of 73 and 75. So there you go. This guy even bases most of this book off the Club of Rome and their reports. Let's flip ahead. So here's a picture of pretty much what they want, everybody. Okay? So if that's the amount of energy that we're using, okay, energy use and population, if that's the amount of energy and population we have by 2000, this is what they want. This is what they want. It's amazing. They want a future low-energy, sustainable culture, just like the Hunger Games, with home birth, dying. Alright, I'll get to the picture that says home birth, and here's another interesting picture, by the way. This is, on the bottom, was their attempted plans to, combine religion and science. On the top is their new proposed solutions to do so. Take a good look. The music is nicer than the proposed plans, I'm afraid. The issue of population growth is a vexed one with many different perspectives. The world is probably already overpopulated for the long-term good of humanity, oh that's nice, and other species. Some of the most detailed and authoritative nationwide studies of sustainability have been done in the tiny and relatively prosperous Caribbean country of Costa Rica. Modeling of the ecological footprint suggested Costa Rica could sustainably support over 80% of its 1987 population at current levels of consumption, while energy analysis suggested a figure of only 53%. So that pretty much means that they want, nearly, they want 30% less population and consumption. That's what this graph is showing, nearly 30% less. That's what those numbers are showing. My problem with this book is that he doesn't have any solutions. Okay, he has no solutions to anything. He doesn't care. He talks about the elite once in a while in the book and says that they're basically scumbags, but he doesn't have any solutions. His only solutions basically are for us to adapt and to change to a descent culture and a low energy culture. That is what this book is about. Okay, that's why he uses the spiral symbol on the front of the book to symbolize a change to a different type of society, okay? The environmental crisis, he writes, is real and of a magnitude that will certainly transform modern global industrial society beyond recognition. Let's go on. Here you go. Attitudes and values adaptive to dissent. I don't even have to read that anymore. He's very focused on centralized technology. Just like the Hunger Games, accessibility and low dependence on expensive and centralized technology. Anyway, here is a section that I really wanted to read. Tribal hunter-gatherer societies once had high degrees of internal cooperation, while competition between tribes resulted in occasional warfare. It could be argued that this occasional conflict on a contained battlefield acted as a way to apply selection pressure on surplus young males, okay, without the conflict having too much adverse impact on the tribe as a whole. That's pretty much messed up that he brings that up in the book in the first place. You know, it is often suggested that we are fated by nature to use violence to resolve conflict. Tribal conflict and aggression is a pattern of behavior that had more benefits than problems for most of the 100,000 years or so of human culture. I mean, I don't. I guess I see that, but I also don't see that. It's kind of, I don't know. But to be pushing that nowadays, or even talking about that nowadays, it just doesn't seem relevant. Um, However, the successful spread and proliferation of people in the last 10,000 years and the escalating power and scope of warfare have made tribal conflict a dysfunctional pattern. Yeah, no shit. And then in this area, he talks about visiting Israel in 1994. I was shocked by the prevalence of rubbish discarded in the streets and the countryside, the lack of maintenance of buildings and vehicles, and the cavalier approach to waste management and pollution. Uh, he basically claims that the cool theory is that if modern living generates rubbish, pollution, and waste, then it is childish and naive to try to hide and ignore it. Yeah, it is. It is childish and naive to hide and ignore it. But it's not childish and naive to understand it and attempt to fix it. From this perspective, though, he writes, the Israelis or the Greeks having coffee on the street cafe as close to the choking car fumes and other factory and pollution fumes as possible may be more at one with their world than affluent Swedes living in beautiful, clean, and green Stockholm, worrying about strontium 90, synthetic estrogens, or genetically modified organisms getting into their organically certified food. Now, you see, this is how you know that books and authors like this are truly not the best. They're not really good they're not leaders, they're not visionaries, they're not anything. What does this mean? What does this section mean? From this perspective, from the perspective of Greeks and Israelis living in polluted areas and basically accepting it, because that's what he's talking about. All I'm saying is that there's a lot of fluff in the book. He basically tries to put a last page or so at the end to redeem himself. Okay, yet the rest of the book is propaganda, and we could all see that. Thank you guys very much for watching. I don't even want to say like and subscribe, but I just did. Take care.